Hello, and welcome to the Apostolic Resource Center. My name is Lisa Great. I am here today to share with you a prophetic word that the Lord spoke to me yesterday morning. The reason I'm sharing it with you today is because I wanted to sit on it, pray through it, and also just listen to see what God was really trying to say about this word. And the confirmations that came through yesterday were undeniable that this is what He is saying. And so yesterday morning in prayer, the Lord spoke to me and He said, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. Call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. Immediately, I saw the vision of the statue of the four kingdoms in Daniel chapter 2. This is a dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had. And he ended up calling all of his Chaldeans and magicians and sorcerers and all the people. And he said, here's the deal. I want you to tell me my dream and I want you to tell me the interpretation. And they said, this is impossible, King. Who is going to know your dream other than God alone? And so anyway, they ended up wanting to kill all of the different counselors to the king. And then Daniel came forth and spoke to Arioch, which was the king's main man that was coming to execute everybody. And he said, hey, tell the king, give me a couple days. I will seek the Lord and I will find out the dream and its interpretation. Long story short, reading Daniel chapter 2, what you come to find out is that the dream was about four kingdoms. Now, a lot of prophetic people and end times people have said a lot of things about this. I'm not interested in getting involved in the theological discussions related to Daniel chapter 2. All I'm here to do is share with you today what God spoke to me yesterday morning and then what happened yesterday and the confirmations I received. So the Lord said, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. So I went into the courts of heaven. I was able to call for the fall of that kingdom. And I knew right then and there that Daniel chapter 2 is what God was talking about. So let me read a couple things to you out of Daniel chapter 2. Then I'm going to share with you the confirmations that came through yesterday that confirms this word that God spoke yesterday. So in Daniel chapter 2, starting with verse 40, it says, there will be a fourth kingdom, as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things. So like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces. In that you saw the feet and toes, this is God speaking to Daniel, in that you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it will be a divided kingdom. Immediately when I read that, the Lord, we're going to do a little Bible study, so get your Bible. The Lord spoke to me, Mark 3:24, because Jesus talked about a divided kingdom as well. And it's important that we recognize the connections that Jesus is making. In Mark 3, verse 24, let's start with verse 23. It says, and he called them to himself, this is Jesus speaking, and began speaking to them in parables. How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. Now, in Daniel chapter 2, the Lord was speaking to Daniel about a divided kingdom. It was partly made of pottery or clay, and it was partly made of iron. And this was the feet of the kingdom. This was the fourth and final kingdom in Daniel's vision. And the Lord spoke to me and said, call for the fall once and for all of the iron and clay kingdom. So let's go on back to Daniel 2 and keep reading. We're in verse 41. In that you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it will be a divided kingdom. But it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with common clay. As the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of pottery, so some of the kingdom will be strong and part of it will be brittle. And in that you saw the iron, this is huge, verse 43, Daniel 2, in that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will combine with one another in the seed of men. In it, they will combine with one another in the seed of men. For you Bible students, you know immediately that's going to take us over to Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. Now, stay with me here because I want to show you what God is saying right now in this hour and in this day. Because what we're dealing with, this COVID-19, is so much bigger than some flu-like virus in the atmosphere. Genesis 6, verse 1 says, "Now it came about when men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whoever they chose." What does it say in Daniel chapter 2, verse 43? In that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will combine with one another. Who's combining? The iron and the clay. Who's combining in Genesis 6:1? The sons of God, the iron, with the daughters of men, the clay. Men meaning, daughters of men meaning people that were created out of the soil of the earth in Genesis 1 and 2. Sons of God meaning the demonic heavenly hosts that were engaging in order to disrupt the seed on earth as it is in heaven. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But it says they will combine with one another in the seed of men. That's why they're a divided kingdom, partly iron, partly clay. But they will not adhere to one another. It won't stick. The iron and the clay will not stick together. It's a brittle kingdom. Even as iron does not combine with pottery. And so it goes on in Daniel 2, and it says, "In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed, and that kingdom will not be left for another people. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, and it itself will endure forever." The Lord told me, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. Now, there's many interpretations of what this iron and clay kingdom is. I wasn't looking to define it. Some people have called it Rome. Some people have called it Mystery Babylon in Revelation 17, 18, and 19. There's many interpretations. I'm not interested in the interpretation. I'm interested in getting this word to you, and you can study it out yourself. But the Lord told me, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. And if you read Daniel chapter 2, it says that a stone came out of heaven and crushed the feet of this kingdom, and it ended forever. Well, it says that stone that came out and crushed that iron and clay feet in Daniel 2, it says that stone became the mountain of the Lord. That immediately sent me to Isaiah chapter 2, where it talks about the mountain of the Lord is the chief of all the mountains. So I want you to hear me clearly. The Lord said, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. And so that is exactly what I did. I sent this message yesterday morning to a really good friend of mine in Nashville and told her this is what God said. Then yesterday afternoon, I went to Charlie Shamp. He is with Destiny Encounters. You can find him on YouTube. Charlie Shamp. He's a prophet. He did a video on March 11th, 2020, where the presence of God came when I think he was in Japan or in Tokyo. No, that is Japan, or Taiwan, but he was over in the Asia area. And the presence of God came, and he saw the Lord with a sword strike the earth. And he believed he saw it strike in China. Now, that's just what he said, but here's what I want to tell you. That video that he posted from March 11, 2020, is that he said in that video, mark March 27th as a distinguishing day on earth where something significant is going to take place. He thought it was related to the coronavirus. But we as prophets see in part, hear in part. I believe that he saw clearly that something significant was going to take place on March 27th. Because on March 27th, which was yesterday, the Lord spoke to me and said, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. So Charlie Shamp said that. I didn't know he said that about March 27th until yesterday afternoon. God said that to me yesterday morning. March 27th in the morning in prayer, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. And now, yesterday, I want to read to you from Yahoo Finance what happened yesterday, March 27th, 2020. Call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. Hear me out. Are you ready? Here's what it said according to Yahoo Finance, Yahoo News Finance, okay? It says, so how can they do this? Do what? The Fed will they're talking about the Fed doing some, basically the Treasury, which is in order of the executive branches in charge of the Treasury. The Fed is going to finance loans that the Treasury is going to back. Okay, so this is what it says. So how can they do this? The Fed will finance a special purpose vehicle for each acronym to conduct these operations. The Treasury, using the Exchange Stabilization Fund, will make an equity investment in each SPV and be in the first loss position. What does this mean? In essence, the Treasury, which is under the order of the executive branch, not the Federal Reserve, which is a globalist financial entity, is buying all these securities and backstopping of loans. The Fed is acting as a banker and providing financing. The Fed hired BlackRock Inc. to purchase these securities and handle the administration of the SPVs on behalf of the owner, the Treasury. Treasury is where the gold is. And in other words, the federal government is nationalizing large swaths of the financial markets. The Fed is providing the money to do it. BlackRock will be doing the trades. The scheme essentially merges the Fed and Treasury into one organization. So meet your new Fed chairman, Donald J. Trump. Yahoo Finance News. You say, what does this have to do with anything, Lisa? Genesis 6 is in the days of Noah. Jesus said, at the end of the age, it will be as in the days of Noah. Daniel 2 talks about the iron and clay kingdom that was the mixture of iron, which is strong, and clay, which is brittle. And it was a divided kingdom, and it said that the iron and the clay would not adhere to each other. In Genesis 6, it did adhere to each other. That's why the flood was brought onto the earth. In Daniel 2, he saw a kingdom where this was going to happen again, where the iron was going to try to adhere with the clay, but Daniel said it would not adhere together because iron and clay cannot adhere together. So here's these divided kingdom. It's got iron and it's got clay. And the Lord said to me yesterday, call for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. So I decreed it in prayer. Charlie Shamp saw March 27th as a significant day where the sword of the Lord hit the earth. And he said, mark my words for March 27th. He also said, watch May 7th. Watch May 7th. I don't know what's going to happen on May 7th. All I know is what happened yesterday for me and what God is saying for us to know. Let me tell you this. What does all this mean? Why am I telling you all this? Because we are in the most significant spiritual, historical events in the history of our lifetime. And for you that have eyes to see and ears to hear, this is so much bigger than COVID-19. This is not about a strand of the flu that is quote unquote killing people. That we've never had a flu virus that has put us in quarantine, that has put us in our own homes, that has put us in a Passover season. We are in the month of Judah, where the Lion of the tribe of Judah roars, where we find that God is doing miracles upon miracles in our midst. We just had the greatest transfer of wealth that the earth has ever seen happen yesterday. In America, in our generation. It just happened. You may not fully understand it in its completeness, and I'm not an economic specialist. All I know is what God told me. I believe that we are about to see the raising of the mountain of the Lord as the chief of all the mountains. We are about to see God do incredible things in our day. We are in the month of Judah. Next month is a month of miracles, and the month of June is a month of prosperity. So you praise, you prophesy, and then you prosper is what my friend Minister Twyla told me. For the months of April, May, and June, you praise Judah, the month of June, the month of Nisan on the Hebrew calendar. You prophesy the month of May, where miracles are going to break out. And then in the month of June, which is going to be Zebulun, get ready, people. We are about to prosper like we've never seen before. So I want you to be encouraged. God has us in our homes under quarantine for the safety and the redemption and the restoration of a nation. The nations are being turned. Only God can cause nations to have people stay in their home at such a time as this. These are significant days. This is a powerful time to be alive. And I just want you to know that thank you, Charlie Shamp, for hearing March 27th. Thank you, President Trump, for rescuing the nations financially from the globalist system. And thank you, Yahweh, God of heaven and earth, for calling for the fall of the iron and clay kingdom once and for all. Because we are your kingdom people, and we are your voice on earth, and we will give a shout in the month of Judah. Remember 2 Chronicles 20:20. Judah goes first, and the enemy gets into confusion, and they defeat him once and for all. These Egyptians that you see today, Exodus 14, you will not see again. I decree it and I declare it today. Lift up your voice in praise, because we are living in the best days ever in our generation on earth as it is in heaven. And the best is yet to come. Have a great day.